The three men who matter most when it comes to war and peace in our time: Donald Trump, Xi Jinping, and Vladimir Putin. Their mindsets are different from those of the American and Soviet leaders during the Cold War, and yet very similar to each other's. They're all imperialists, and that's scary. Let me explain. During the Cold War, American and Soviet leaders stood for ideologies. The US was for liberty and capitalism. The Soviets were for Marxist-Leninism. That turned out surprisingly stable. The Cold War stayed cold. These days, China and Russia stand for something else: power for its own sake, and a lust for dominance that includes territorial expansion. That has a word: imperialism. But it's more of an instinct than an ideology. If you want an analogy, it's the 19th century when the great powers competed for colonies, which led them straight into the trenches of World War I. So a world of imperialists is dangerous. For many decades, though, the United States stood against imperialism because it thought of itself as a beacon or crusader of liberty. That time is over, and the reason is Trump. He doesn't care about the so-called liberal international order, in which even small countries can feel safe because the great powers follow rules. He's instead threatening small countries. Denmark, because he wants Greenland. Panama, because he wants its canal. Canada, because he wants all of it. He has not been threatening Putin and Xi as much, and instead signals that he wants to make a deal. And notice something else. Trump's favorite predecessor is not one of those guys on Mount Rushmore. It's William McKinley. Why? One reason is that McKinley used trade tariffs a lot, and Trump loves tariffs. Another is that McKinley was the only openly imperialist president. He seized Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines, the Western Samoan Islands, and Wake Island, and he annexed Hawaii. McKinley was a Republican, and in 1900 the Democrats warned that imperialism abroad will lead inevitably to despotism at home. They lost the election and McKinley was assassinated. But within a few years, public opinion went the other way. Imperialism was again considered bad in America, right up until Trump. Do you know who's thrilled about that? Putin and Xi. They want to cut deals with him, to carve up the world into spheres of influence. Putin wants Eastern Europe, Xi wants Asia. And for that, they'll give the Western Hemisphere to Trump, because they're all three imperialists. Remember what those Democrats said over a century ago. Imperialism abroad will lead to despotism at home.